Hello everyone, welcome back to the Magpie Channel TV. Welcome to Fleet Street here on Pudding Chair in the heart of the town. We're joined by two Newcastle United legends. As always, Steve Watson. How we doing, pal?
I'm okay, good to see you, mate.
Good to see you, mate. And Mr. John Gibson. I'm going to call you Sir
Lovely
Gibbo.
to see you,
He's
big
actually
mate.
absolute
Lovely to see
legend in the Newcastle United scene. We're here during the boring international break to discuss what goes on at Newcastle United going forward. A lot of the talk has been about Eddie Howe after a disappointing week, the defeat in the derby, the humiliation against Barcelona away. But we have to look forward and we have to look beyond this season and how it goes. We're going to focus on Eddie Howe, first of all, lads. And title of the podcast is Eddie the right man to lead Newcastle United forward? And also, can he take us to that next level? So first of all, Watto, a lot of tension. We were there after the game against Sunderland, walking down here at Fleet Street to enjoy some post-match pints as well. Drown with sorrows, really, and watch the City Arsenal League Cup game. And there was a lot of that in the air about Eddie Howe this, Eddie Howe that. The dust has settled a bit now. I know you were firmly still back Eddie's the man. The dust has settled a bit. We're a week or so after the game. 7 or 8 games left of this season. How we're feeling at the minute?
Well, my sort of mind hasn't changed from it. Obviously, after the game, you're gonna be absolutely disappointed, like no other really, and knee-jerk reactions. And funny enough, we're talking about me and you walking down here. Your sort of mood had changed slightly from straight after kick-off to probably an hour and a half later walking down here, and you kind of mellowed a little bit to the fact that you kind of make like decisions of a performance. But no, for me, I think he's absolutely I think he's great. I think he's listen, we haven't has the season been that bad? We're not where we want to be in the league. I get that. We hit the post twice in domestic cups. We've went as deep as I've seen us in Europe. After 2 legs, we've had 1 quarter. We've been battered off a very good Barcelona side. Come off the back of that and you lose the biggest game that you just can't lose. And to be honest, I'm in a position where I've never lost a hobby as a player. So I've only ever felt the sort of the loss in as a fan, but I've felt plenty of losses and derbies as players, and it should be hurting like hell. But go light of day, you get the international break, as you say, the boring time to reflect. How hard his summer must have been really tough. Did he get a couple of things wrong? Possibly, certainly as a 9, as the main striker, but there was sort of extenuating circumstances with the saga of the other fella. So listen, I'm firmly in the camp of careful what you wish for. I think he's 100% our best chance at the moment of getting where we need to be.
Your ex-teammate, actually, Wayne Rooney, said that on his podcast last week. He said, Newcastle fans, don't call for Eddie Howe to be out. Be careful what you wish for, because he sees him as the man to take us forward. And, sometimes maybe people can have short-term memories in terms of, it was only a year yesterday that we're all in the town were having the best time ever, celebrating the cup win.
He's give us all the best, as Newcastle fans, the best day of our lives, hasn't he? The best weekend of our lives, or whatever the celebration lasted 2 weeks. But that aside, the job he did when he came in, he done unbelievable in a short space of time. He's turned our now heroes from players that we actually, if we're all being honest, didn't rate. And he's turned players around. We were talking before about Jacob Murphy. Like he's turned into a top draw wide man who works his socks off. Joe Linton's turned into an unbelievable box-to-box midfielder. Fabian Shaw, who I'll admit myself, I thought had we seen all we needed to see about Fabian Shaw, and unfortunately he's injured, but he's been unbelievable for us. So he's done so much right, and we're a little bit older, and Gibbo, aren't we? And we've seen bad sides. We have seen really bad sides, haven't we? And we're not where we want to be at the minute. But let's get it right. We're not in a bad place. We're just not where we want to be.
Gibbo, that leads us on nicely to you then. We've had a bit of time to reflect. We're obviously before we met up before, we're talking about how devastated we're, unacceptable performance in the derby. But as a whole, and as what was said, there no knee-jerk reactions should be applied. Are you still thinking that Eddie's the right man to lead this club forward?
Well, he's going to be the man that leads this club forward. Nothing's going to happen between now and the end of the season, and because that would be ludicrous. Forget about Eddie. Replacing managers this time of the season, please don't go down that road. Look at Spurs.
God,
I mean, it's an unmitigated disaster. That's not going to happen in Newcastle. It's probably not going to be happen in Newcastle. Anything happens to Eddie in the summer. But let's wait and see what happens. There's 7 or 8 games to go. You could make Europe, albeit the smaller Europe, not the Champions League, absolutely no chance. Let's see what happens, because Eddie has asked for time on the training ground and has said he's been deprived of that. As far as I'm concerned, top clubs are deprived of that. You've got to play 3 games. If you've got any ambition, you play 3 games a season because you're in Europe. So let's not complain about it. Isn't that what we want to do? But this is the time where he's got them on grass during the week. So automatically, if the theory's right, we are going to see a great improvement between now and the end of the season. Because if we don't, the theory's been blown out the water.
The problem is half of them are away anyway, aren't they?
No, I don't mean now. I mean from starting with Crystal Palace, he's playing 1 game a week. Yeah. And if he doesn't produce better results than that, to say, well, that's why we've been struggling and now we've got what I wanted, look at what we've done. I'm of the other opinion. I totally follow what Howe says, and what Howe's been in the game and is still in the game and he knows what he's talking about, etc., etc. But I'm a fan of long standing. I am still disappointed. Why should I not be disappointed? Nothing's changed since we lost 2 games in 4 days. And by the way, it was the manner of losing those 2 games that have had alarm bells for me and has made me feel absolutely decimated as a Geordie. I was willing to accept that we might go no further after Barcelona because they're a top side. If we'd lost 3-2 out there, which was the half-time score, and we'd scored 2 goals and frightened them, and I would say, hey,
it's respectable,
my head's held high, this is what we... When we let in 7, I'm decimated. As a Newcastle fan, Newcastle don't let in 7 goals. I don't care who they're playing. They don't let in 7 goals. We did. We ran out the flag in the second half. We really did. Then we come home and we could put it right. In our performance, second half against Sunderland was abysmal. And not for the first time this season, for the second time this season. We were shocking down there. So if alarm bells, that's all in 4 days. So if alarm bells, and by the way, I'm not going to come to the conclusion that Eddie should go. That is not my conclusion here. But we've got a right to be apprehensive. That is not good enough. To get in 4 days 2 results like I felt Sunderland was unthinkable. I was absolutely confident, even after we'd let in 7, that we'll beat Sunderland. I said we'll beat Sunderland. They're not as good as their form has been this season. Haven't they done terrific? Haven't they done this? And we aren't as bad as we're painted, and they're not as good as they're painted.
Gibbo Port Vale beat them a couple of weeks before we beat them.
Correct. I mean,
and had a few of the best players out as well.
But I make no excuses for saying I am absolutely decimated. What I do know, and I'm not a knee-jerk reaction guy here, what I do know is we've taken a big step backwards. There's no question about that. There's several reasons why, but don't give me the reason it's because we're playing 3 games a week. Because isn't that what we strive the whole... Last season, didn't we strive the whole season to play 3 games a week by qualifying for the Champions League? And then we did, and we say, oh, but it's only because we're playing in the Champions League. If we weren't playing 3 games a week, would be great. Excuse me, that's what you aim to do. Play. Now, if we have a great season next season, because we're not playing 3 games a week, and then we qualify for the Champions League as a consequence, and we've got to automatically expect a terrible season to follow, because that's happened twice. We went for the Champions League. And I don't accept it at all. And there was loads of things that's wrong. I'm not knee-jerking for the manager to go, but I'm facing facts. The facts are we have taken a huge, huge step backwards. We have been beaten by Sunderland twice. We let in 7 goals against Barcelona. We were beaten at home in successive games by Brentford and Everton. We haven't had a good season. We had a horrible summer. Heaven forbid that we have a transfer window this summer,
So sorry, just
like last summer.
Do you mind like backing on to the summer question? It's not we're not looking for excuses, but facts are probably with 3 first choice midfielders missing. By the way, one of them is suddenly fit to play for Italy, which I'm amazed at. But our squad maybe isn't strong enough to cope. I know we want to be where we are. We want to play the 3 games a week, and we want to be challenging on all fronts. Maybe the squad isn't strong enough yet. Maybe that summer has a massive effect on the squad size. But again, not excuses, but like reasons. Yeah. So we can't. We're not. We haven't got 2 world-class players for every position yet. We haven't got an Arsenal squad yet.
Correct.
And so everything's came at once. The time scale of the Barca result followed by a derby match which we didn't perform in. Time scale of it couldn't be worse. Like almost a perfect storm of shyness.
Wouldn't it be nice if we had the 3-week break and then play something or the week after?
It is what it is.
But
I do think you should find enough on the day. By the way, like,
yeah, absolutely.
I've played, I've played God knows how many games, and I've played big schedules. But these games, you just find
the energy comes from somewhere.
And that was the disappointment. We didn't find a way.
I thought it was the perfect game after Barcelona because we'd be up for the derby, and you can't put right a 7-goal fashion, but you can rinse your mouth of the bad taste. And I thought we would do that again. And we had the best chance to do that. And we blew. And by the way, let's not lose. Our second half performance against Sunderland up here and our whole performance against Sunderland down there was nothing short of a disgrace.
No, it was
and
a disgrace.
what worries me is I think Eddie will survive, and I'm happy with that, and that's okay. But I tell you what, in lots of ways, this is the end of a lovely... We're starting again, I mean by that. The end of a lovely romantic time from when we were taking over till now. It's all worked, the treat, everything's happened wonderfully, and now we've hit a barrier.
This is the first
we
big
signed
speed bump in the road,
very badly in last summer. We signed very badly, and this is just a personal. I believe the type of football that Eddie loves, which I've found fabulous. This high pressing, high octane type of football, pin them. Wonderful to watch. I'll tell you something. I wonder if it's sustainable. Bielsa did that at Leeds. He come in at Leeds, albeit they were in the 2nd division. He got hold of a club. He said, we'll be exciting. We'll be front foot. We'll press. We'll be fit. We'll do this. We'll do that. The players loved it. The fans loved it. It was unsustainable after 4 years. What's Eddie done? Oh, he's just done 4 years.
You can't
continue
every few
to
days.
Play like that. You can't do that. But you know why? Because, first of all, you've got to be absolutely, supremely fit. Secondly, you've got to have all the players that fit into that style. Voldemort is a great exception that doesn't. And thirdly, you've got to retain that enthusiasm in the players that they are utterly convinced against all odds this works. And if one of them thinks it doesn't, by the way, then it doesn't work. Because if you've got a high press, quick, etc., and somebody doesn't do that in the high press, then the high press doesn't work.
Right.
And I look at Newcastle now and I think, and Eddie is an intelligent boy, good coach, can come up with a plan B, but I think he's got to come up with a plan B. I don't think, especially if Voldemort is here and remains as our top signing, now playing midfield, having been bought as a centre forward, he can't play the game. Why was he signed?
Do you know what though, Gibbo? Like, I'm just throwing this at you, by the way, both of you. But to have that press and to have that energy to press without the ball, you need to spend a fair bit of time with the ball to get your breather.
Yes.
So when we haven't got an actual number 9 to get us up the pitch to go through and to keep hold of the ball, I don't think we spend long enough on the ball. And if you haven't got the ball, then you're spending, I don't know, 60 minutes the ball's in play. If you're spending 45 minutes of those 60 chasing, pressing, you can't sustain it. So I think the fact that we haven't been brilliant with the ball, we haven't took with chances, we haven't probably created enough chances to give ourselves a breather. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with how we can't constantly, you can't play 3 games a week and not control the game. And by not having Bruno and not having Tonali, and by the way, one of our biggest misses has been Louis. So you're starting these games without your 3 mainstays midfielder. Bruno, no matter what the situation, will want the ball, can calm the game down, can buy a foul. Whereas I think those last 2 games, it's just been a game of basketball. And when you're playing a game of basketball against Barcelona A, the amount of energy that must have been asserted that second half, which you don't see because you only see the result, but you see the amount of energy that we were chasing to go into then Sunderland. Second half, totally unacceptable. I get that. Probably completely run out of energy. But you've got to be to press like that. You've got to be really good with the ball. You've got to have spells where you spend large spells with the ball, and I just don't think we're doing that either.
I think that's absolutely true, and I think the midfield is very much a part of that, because the midfield is your platform to have the ball, etc., etc. But you've also got to have a centre forward that's capable of playing that way. We had Isaac, whether we like him or not, and we don't as a person because of the way he left. What we do is a centre forward. He scored 27 goals last season. He was front foot. He was able to go past people, create spaces, stretch defenders, etc., etc. We replace him, and by the way, we spent all his money. We've got somebody said, "Well, we're going 25 million." Yeah, but we blew 125 million by spending it on Voldemort and Wisa, both of whom aren't capable. Forget how good a player Voldemort might be and what he's got. We all have been on about that relentlessly. But he ain't a centre forward. He ain't a Newcastle United centre forward in particular, which is pace, like Supermac, like Jackie Milburn. Shearer didn't have the pace, but by Jove, didn't he have everything else?
But what you could do with Shearer, by the way, is, and forget his goals, as a right back or a left back or a centre half, which I played all 3. Yeah. You could put the ball up when you knew he'd look after it.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the breather I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
That's the breather I'm talking about. Whereas Isaac would do it differently. You could give Isaac the ball and he'd keep it by manoeuvring it, manipulating it.
Correct.
You know,
but who decided, and I'm not, who decided because somebody did? And I know there were 5th choice and 6th choice because it's well documented who would try to buy as a 9 before him. But who decided Voldemort the way he played? And I'm not having to go with Nick. I mean, Nick must sit there and think, why was I bought for this team? All what I haven't got is what this team needs. And all that I have got, they're not utilising. So why was I bought for this? And I look at Wisa, and I think, why? I just think, why, without asking any of that questions?
Which says the bigger, because I actually really like Nick Voldemort, and I think he's a really good footballer, very good technical player. I think he'd be a lot more suited to, like, say, Arsenal. You know, how they play with that kind of false 9. Havertz has done it a lot. I think the way he would play would be perfect. You'll probably see him in this international break for Germany. He'll score 3 or 4 goals, look brilliant, probably look class at the World Club, but he just doesn't suit Eddie Howe's style of play at all. So you're right, Gibbo, who on earth decided he was the man to replace Isaac if your system is going to be the same? But we can get into that soon. Wisa was the proven Premier League number 9. He scored 17 goals in the league for Brentford last year for a mid-table team. He was brilliant. He can play on the left. He was playing across the front 3. And he's came to us. Yes, he had an injury at the start. But both of those, like you said, that's 125 million of the Isaac sale on Wisa and Voldemort, and neither of them get a game.
Well, with
when we need a goal scorer.
This is true. This is absolutely true. And we say he scored 19 goals last season, Premier League, etc., etc., etc. But I talked to somebody who I won't mention, who is a very good friend of Ivan Toney's, our ex-player, who played with Wisa in Wisa's probably first season in Ivan's last season at Brentford before he went. And they were talking like off the record with no axe to grind. They said, what about Wisa going to your old club? and he said, good lad, top man, able to score goals, won't handle Newcastle United.
Really?
Club's too big for him.
Dear me.
Club's too big for him.
Looks that way anyway, doesn't it?
And this was with no axe to grind. This is not Ivan Toney saying,
hindsight
I'm a better
now.
player than him. He's saying an honest opinion in private. And to me, that looks like Wissa. That looks like Wissa to me.
It does.
I think the whole world's coming on his shoulders. This club is bigger than he. It's all right playing. I want utmost respect to all the Brentford fans out there, both of them. All of them, I mean. I want the utmost respect to them. But Brentford isn't Newcastle.
Nah, of course
it's
not.
not playing for Newcastle. When Supermac come from Luton to Newcastle, it wasn't Luton, but he was big bollocks. It's different. But it's a different world, and I think this is too much for Wissa, and I think it's the wrong game for Voldemort. End line, we've got to buy another centre forward who's going to cost a fortune, because centre forwards do, this summer, because we dare not go into next season with the firepower we've got. An outside left playing centre forward, who I don't believe will be here next season anyway, and then Visa, and then Voldemort, who is a 10, and it would be a good 10. And by the way, he's only playing centre forward for Germany because they suffer like us. They haven't got a centre
anyone
forward
else, to be
like
fair.
they haven't got an orthodox centre forward like the Yuri Sealer and all the blokes they used
Miroslav
to have.
Klose.
They haven't got one, so they're playing with Voldemort. And I'm not having a go with him. I know he splits Newcastle. I think he's got terrific feet and all that. But I'm sick of being told he's got terrific feet. I mean, is there sharks in the penalty area? Because he's terrified to go in there. You know.
He looked out at the start of the season, didn't he, when he was scoring worldies against Everton and Brighton? And
I get exactly what you're saying about Wissa, and you know, I've been at the club where things haven't been going great, and it's a tough school. You know, it is. You know, when I was under Aussie, we talked about Aussie just before Kevin came. That era, it was hard, and it was hard to play at home, because of the size of the club.
Yeah.
But that is where good players puff the chests
Absolutely.
out, puff the chests out, and say, right, let's get this sorted. And he doesn't seem to be able to have done that. Now, I'll tell you what we're going to talk about before. Where down the list, say you've got a list of 10 strikers that you want in Newcastle, and you don't get 8 of them. What do? You know, it's easy to say we bought the wrong players, but you know, Cunha and Bemu, and I know they're not out and out nines, but the match winners.
But yes,
you know what
yes,
I mean?
yes.
And you'd find a way around it.
João Pedro was the one,
Of
wasn't
course,
it?
yeah, but
And then he got-
ultimately,
Etitike,
what do you do? Do you just say, right, well, we'll just not do anything? We'll keep 125 million in the bank or whatever it is, and wait till next year.
Well,
You
I
can't.
mean-
So you've got to take a chance, and you've got to, as a manager, no matter what level it is. I do the same thing. Obviously, much lower down.
Same thing.
But you find something. You find the best option that's available, and hope that you can make it work. And unfortunately, like certainly the Wissa one just hasn't worked.
Yeah.
But I tell you 2 things on that, and you're absolutely right, Steve. But 2 things on that. We went out and gambled on the 2 guys resigning, because what's your alternative? Well, the alternative's what we're doing now. You don't sign them and play Gordon centre forward. I mean, we may as well not have done it, because
125 in the bank.
both of them are fit, but they don't start. So what the heck did we gain by doing?
I know, but
by
you don't
doing
know
that.
that. You don't
No,
know
you
that
don't.
before
No,
you
you
get
don't.
into the club.
But you do know, and forgive me, it's
an educated gamble. It's a big gamble, but ultimately everything's a gamble. It's every manager's a gamble. So you know, we were talking
But do you
about
not-
who's going to
do
be
you not-
better. Everything's a gamble. There's no guarantees, and unfortunately for us, both of them haven't worked.
I mean,
In that position.
Wissa hasn't worked big time, but the thing I come back to, and I don't want to dwell on, I really don't, is Wissa is a gamble that didn't work. That happens in football. It didn't work. Who the hell decided Voldemort's style was the style we needed to play 9 in a team based purely on pace and high pressing? The 2 things he infinitely hasn't got.
It has to be Howe.
Who decided
'Cause
that?
there was only them 2 at the time, wasn't it?
And it's
Eddie and
not
Andy.
but it's not criticism of him. I mean, why don't you put one of your goalkeepers centre forward and he can't
We've got
play
enough of
there
them, like.
either?
Got enough goalkeepers to play centre forward.
Well, they could.
These will
Some
try
of them
Rudy up
better
front.
than they could play goalkeeper. So if you look at all the ones we've got. But no, but that staggers me. A scout can make a mistake. We have had a brilliant signing record right up to last summer. A brilliant. You can't get them all right. No question about. I thoroughly understand that. Wisa has been a disaster. I thoroughly understand that. But you're buying a 19-goal centre forward, etc., etc. But who? And this is nothing of fault of Marta. I feel absolutely sorry for him. Who the hair oil at Newcastle thought he would fit in perfectly to our thing, to our style, and was so convinced would pay a club record fee for him, for God's sake. You know.
So hold on, he's an international. He'll be playing the World Cup.
Oh, I'd be leading the line for Germany in the World Cup.
Okay, so what about this as a little counter sort of argument? Why can't Valdemolde, as an international footballer, adapt his style of play to be that number 9? He's 6 foot what? He's 6'5". He's
Yes.
a big, strong lad. Why can't he adapt his game to be that? Why can't he be a back to goal striker? Why can't he be a predator?
Well, two
how can't
things.
we work on that, like, to get him?
Eddie doesn't play him then. Also.
A few things
but,
there.
but you've got an amount of players. You've got a toolbox, haven't you? And you've got to fix a job. You can't use anything that's not in there. So how do we find that way? How can't Baltimore himself adapt and
But
you know,
then
watch?
again, look at it the other way. You're saying, you know, he's 6'8", big strong lad. He's 6'8", but he isn't a big strong lad. He's as weak as a drink of water. I mean, that is no. Look at the centre
That's
forward.
not an ability thing.
But look at the centre forward. But we can't expect him to become a big, strong centre forward. Look at the fella that played for Sunderland, Bobby. He's a big, strong centre forward. He might be one-paced. He mightn't be score as many as we would like him to. We mightn't want to buy him as a centre forward. But by Jove, he bullied our two centre
I
halves.
suppose I disagree a little bit with he can't suddenly be like. If somebody's technically poor, you can technically get better. If somebody's a little bit weak, you can get stronger.
Physically.
If somebody's a little bit slow, there's ways of getting quicker. They've got we now in sport have got every single tool to make everything better. But I suppose if what you're saying is the thing he maybe is lacking, and if you're talking about that he's not strong and he's 6'7", then is it bollocks? Because
I
you know what I mean? Because
yes,
you have to.
Yes, I do. But also,
you put Alan and Les and people like that up front. They weren't bothered about what was coming behind.
no.
They weren't bothered about getting the hits. They weren't bothered about. In fact, the hits help because it'll buy you a foul. It might buy you a penalty. It might buy you. But if that's what you're saying, then it's I suppose it's kind of tough.
I think
if somebody's 6'7" like Niall Quinn, for instance, who was brilliant with his back to goal.
Oh, yes.
So now we're talking about an international striker, and you're saying he can't be that 9. I find that hard to believe. I find it hard to believe that he can't make himself that 9.
Well, it would help if you like to go in the penalty area. I mean, have you seen his map of where you take how often he's in the penalty area? I mean, honestly, it's got to be filled with sharks. I mean, I can understand. That penalty area has got to be like a swimming
And by the
pool
way, we're
with
talking
sharks.
about him specifically because, unfortunately, the other fella we're talking about, it almost sounds like we've all wrote him off.
Aye, it does.
We said.
Doesn't it? Like we're talking.
Yeah.
At least with Nick, we're talking about. Is there something there that we can, we
Because there is
can,
something
we can
there.
try and get him better.
There
We
is
can try
something.
and make him that 9.
We're seeing at the start of the season, he scored 6 in his first 7.
But I tell you what, when he was
Like, there's
doing
something
that,
there.
Matty, when he was doing that, and this is not being clever with hindsight because I'm just praying like all three were here that everything works because we love Newcastle United. So they were not wishing things to go badly or go away. We love Newcastle United. We wanted to go away. But I'm watching them score 6 out of 6 games or whatever it was like that. And I said straight away, this average can't be kept going. He's having one shot a game that's going in.
Aye.
Now, I tell you what, if you have one shot a game that's going in, I'll tell you what's the biggest certainty of the law is that you're not going to keep that going because it's physically impossible
It's
to
the
keep that.
expectancy, isn't
Aye,
it? And,
sure.
and he put that penalty in a postage stamp. And you think,
Aye.
this guy's a technical genius.
And the next-
Who scores penalties like that? I
And the
know
next
what you
penalty
mean.
he took,
I
which
know
was
what
in
you
a shootout, he hit the bar. But we got through, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm just when I'm watching that, I mean, Pele, the greatest players I've seen, whether it's Pele or it's Cruyff or it's Maradona or it's Ronaldo, the original one, not they played for Brazil centre for.
Oh, nine.
Every shot, Supermax, Shearer, Jackie Milburn, every shot can't go in. Every shot of his was going in. That average was not good. And so when it didn't, we got back to reality.
So can we see then why fans are concerned heading into this summer about the transfer market in terms of you need to replace two strikers that ultimately look like they're not going to work out there at 125 million. So are you going to put the trust on Eddie to replace the ones that didn't do well last summer? And of course, we haven't even talked about Anthony Langer for the same price tag, 50
I don't
million.
want to talk about that.
But you know, where people are saying, is Eddie the right man going forward? Are you going to trust him with another $250 million this summer then?
Thing is about strikers, Matty, I think, like from my experience in football, everybody will take a chance on a striker. So, for instance, if we just say the Wissa thing hasn't worked, I think Wissa will still get a move. Somebody will think, right, he couldn't handle Newcastle, but he's proven he can do it in the Premier League for Brentford. And so maybe a side who's
West Ham.
West Ham already, you don't want to belittle these sides, but Fulham or something like that, they
Forest,
might think, right, okay, get them back to London, get them in a club where it's not as intense.
Fulham's a great shout.
So, you know, maybe we'll not do as badly as we thought if we all agree that we're gonna have to draw a line under that one. Bolton Holiday, you know, maybe he's worth like sticking with, spend more time with him, try and make him that striker that you've got. But you're right, we need 100% need that 9. You're going to have the same problems. We're going to have that same problems. We're going to have that list of who we want, but then the reality is who can we get?
That's very true. It's a good point, and I think, yes, what I said's absolutely correct. Somebody would take a chance on Visa, and the sort of clubs we talked about,
right,
like Fulham,
it's not worked.
They will.
So
We're going to, and by the way, somebody would take a chance on Fulham, but we're not going to get our money back on either, and that's understandable.
Well, I mean, can you let both go
and then do it again,
and then start again? We have to know we've got the right one coming in.
And by the way, we might let a third one go, which is
it'll take longer this year.
Yeah.
Which is
everyone can go. Gordon may go.
Well, they've got a centre forward
who can play
It'll
9.
take longer because of the World Cup as well.
We don't even bring that in.
So
That
people will be
makes
waiting
it,
after the World Cup.
That makes it horrendous. We have got, your original question is, do we allow Eddie
Spend the funds?
Well, first and foremost, let me say that being the old sod in this group of deliciously young and even younger people, and I'm the old guy, that originally managers bought players. Joe Harvey bought every player Newcastle United got, and he did the scouting as well. He had a couple of scouts who recommended to Joe, and then Joe went during the midweek when Newcastle weren't playing to watch that guy, etc., etc. Kevin Keegan bought everybody Newcastle United got, not a chief scout. He had the final say. He was chief scouts would recommend. Both had impeccable records of buying, as Eddie had right up to the summer, of buying the top people. It's not quite like that anymore. You have a director of football who, at the very least, does the contracts if he doesn't decide who's going to be bought. Certainly a scouting team, which includes Steve Nixon and Eddie's nephew, and they decide who it is, and then it comes up the manager to rubber stamp it, because if he doesn't rubber stamp it, he won't play them, so what's the point of signing? So yes, the manager is still critical, but he's not the voice he used to be, when he was almost the one voice, the manager was the one voice that decided who you were going to sign. We've got... What is fascinating is when Newcastle United were getting it right all the time in the transfer market after the takeover, and simultaneously Eddie Howe come at the same time virtually as the takeover, very shortly after that to replace Steve Bruce. And behind the scenes, not the director of football, but behind the scenes, the scouting staff has remained the same. Mm-hmm. You know, Steve Nixon and his nephew and whatever, and, with various outriders in various parts of the world. we got it spectacularly right, and then we got it spectacularly wrong. So what? And we have an excuse last season where we didn't have a director of football to take some of the weight off the manager, etc., and that's true. But who decides this player's well? I mean, we almost had 100% record before last summer, and we almost had a 0% record on last summer. If you think Howe started up there and was brilliant, is tapered with mistakes.
I still think because of his age, I think because of his age, he's proven that he's going to be top draw.
He's played
Howe,
yeah.
Oh yeah. I think he's got everything going for him. But the one thing that disturbed me is I talked to a kid who covers AC Milan, and he says when he makes mistakes, he makes them in clusters.
Aye.
Which is what he started doing now.
But that's the mental side that we're talking about with Whistler as well.
Totally.
We have to...
Totally. But he's got a real chance. And Ramsey, I think, is improving.
I think
he's got a real chance. Langa's an absolute bloody disaster. Whistler's an absolute bloody disaster. Voldemort is not for us. If we have a plan B, which right at the beginning of this podcast I was talking about, perhaps Eddie needs, can he keep going down the Bielsa road, or do we have to adopt a slightly different way of playing? Because can you keep that going season after season after season after season? Bielsa couldn't. And by the way, Bielsa's history, if you look at his club record, he always had sensational success to start with as this disciple of this, and then couldn't sustain it over a long period. His team couldn't sustain it over a long period. Results went belly up. He went to another club. It's sensational, belly up again.
That's what happened with Eddie at Bournemouth, by the way, as well.
Oh, and by the way, legends. Football is so ruthless, and you've been in it all your life, and you know that, Steve. It's brutal. Legends. And I'm suggesting Eddie's a legend because of what he did last season here. A legend here. Legends get the sack. Do you realize, if I said to you, who are the greatest three managers in your lifetime, stretching it a bit, but of modern times at Newcastle, people would say Harvey, Keegan and Robson. We sacked Harvey and Robson. The legends at this club, there's a statue up there with Bobby, and the legends at this club, we sacked Joe Harvey, and we sacked him. Eddie got the sack at Bournemouth, and he's a legend at Bournemouth. I'm not suggesting...
14 months after Leicester won the league.
Oh,
not even that.
Well done. I was going to come... Ranieri got the sack.
That's brutality, it really is.
Arsene Wenger won everything, including producing the Invincibles at Arsenal.
Changing the game in the whole country, by the way.
I got the sack.
I think that changed the way people thought about football.
It happens. Football couldn't
Chelsea.
care.
Oh, yeah, no, I get that.
Football couldn't care less. I don't mean for 1 second that he should go or that he will go. I'm just saying it's not a protection. It's the way football is. And it's staggering, isn't it? It's staggering that we are looking at a situation where 1 year ago we won our first trophy at Wembley, domestic trophy in 70 years, and qualified for the Champions League. We were absolutely ecstatic. 1 year on, we're discussing whether managers should be sacked or not, or Newcastle fans are, etc., etc. Let me give you another example, Steve. Our next game is Crystal Palace. 1 year ago, when we won the League Cup, they won the FA Cup. It was our first domestic trophy in 70 years. It was their first ever trophy of any sort. And he was hailed as a hero. They then went to the Community Shield. Now, I know it's only the Community Shield, but they were playing, I think, Liverpool. They were playing Liverpool as the champion. And they beat them. They beat Man City in the final. Now he's been hounded out, but he's going to leave anyway. But he's been hounded. Their fans are absolutely murdering him. Football life is good as you were yesterday.
Exactly.
Or maybe today.
You're only as good as your last game, aren't you, really?
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
I think we're better than that, though. You know what? I think
or the fans are.
As a fan base, because I'm a fan. I think as a fan base, we've got to see the bigger picture with the manager. That's almost like saying, like, of course we've got this. We want this trajectory that we've spoken about, but that's like saying every backward step or every little spell, we forget all of the great things that he's done, and we move on to somebody else. Like it just doesn't work like that for me. But listen. You're not right. I'm not right. It's football is opinions. That's a great thing about it. That's why what you do is brilliant. That's why TalkSport's one of the biggest listened to stations in the world, because it's all full of Simon Jordans, Jim Whites, Gabby Bondahors. It's all opinions. So I'm not saying I'm right.
No, of course not.
I'm
because
just saying,
we don't know.
I'm just saying this is my thought process, and obviously I'm probably the fact that I've been a manager and I felt really like. I felt really hard done by at times. You know, for York, for instance, you're leading the league from the start to the finish, and then from the start until COVID, and then things conspire, and as you say, like the next 3 or 4 months later, you all of a sudden out of a job, and you stand there scratching your head thinking, right, okay, was that deserved? But that's football. You say it's a really, really brutal industry. So all I'm saying from my point of view is we have to. I'd like to think we could see past and the reasons for it. This summer has been unbelievably difficult, and we've just been talking about. We probably had a shopping list of 10 number 9s. How far down did we get before we said we're going to have to do something? It couldn't have worked out worse the way it conspired with Isaac. As I said earlier, Cups hit the post twice. Got knocked out with a quarter of a double cup tie against Barca. You know, really poor 45 minutes. Really poor 45 minutes in the derby. And are we really sitting here thinking, right, where do we go next?
I'm with you as well, Steve. Right, I'm still fully backing Eddie Howe. Yes, after the derby, it was all a bit like emotional and that, but by the time it calmed down, we were like, yep. Got to be given some time. He's got that credit in the bank. But what a lot of people say to me who watch the videos and stuff is, well, when does that credit in the bank run out, Matty? Because
I get that, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? How are you just going to live off a League Cup win forever? I'm saying, this is what I'm saying personally. I'd love to know your 2 thoughts on it. For me, he's got to be given the summer. Like you said, Gibbo, the transfer windows have went remarkably well for the majority, except last year. You know, your Botmans, your Halls, your Tinos, your Gold, go on and on. They're all absolutely fantastic. And they've all double, tripled the values from Isaac to Tonali this summer. You'll see it. But this summer has to be obviously a lot better. And then for me, I would give them until around Christmas, around New Year, see how we're doing. But I want to know from you, like, what people ask me, well, how long are you going to live on that League Cup win for? How long are you going to
I think what you've just said is reasonable. Like, I think the time scale and everything, I think even the manager would say that. I think that's totally reasonable. What I thought was a bit unreasonable was lose the derby, get them out. which we heard a lot, by the way. I mean,
walking down here, mate.
I should have quit every time I heard it from walking from St James's down to here. But I think what you've just said, that's reasonable. And as I think the manager himself will probably think that. But as I say, right now, nah, not for me.
Not for you.
You've got to be careful what you wish for. A famous phrase, but it's very true. I mentioned earlier on that we as a football club sacked Joe Harvey and Bobby Robson, who will always remain for me 2 great managers alongside Kevin Keegan in Newcastle United's modern history. And we've got to be careful what you wish for, because when we sacked Joe Harvey, did we do better? We got Gordon Lee, who sold our best 2 players, albeit took us to a League Cup final, but sold our best 2 players and then buggered off himself and left us with Richard Dennis, which was like leaving you with the plague. So that didn't work. The next time, Bobby Robson, we'll get rid of Bobby Robson and we'll go down the superstar route with
Souness and Owen and
Souness and
Paducah
etc. So you've got to be worried. It's not only getting rid of somebody, but do you get somebody better? You don't want somebody as good. You've got to have somebody better. Otherwise, why get rid of somebody and point somebody as good? You've got to. So we've got to be careful. I think that Eddie has. I won't use that he's got credit in the bank, because I know what my bank's like. It doesn't give me an awful lot of credit. I don't think the modern life does that to you. You quickly run out of credit. Your credit is your last result. Your credit is not something that you're owed, because that football doesn't. It's the most ruthless game in the world. It doesn't work like that. But we've got to remember how big a profile he's got, how much he gives to Newcastle United. He wants to be about Newcastle United. He cares about Newcastle United, etc. There's no question.
And by the way, the players love him.
Oh, but I tell you what, I look at some of them and think, do you love him as much as you should? Because
Lately,
I tell
I
you
think
what,
that for the
if
first
I
time.
was manager, I would look.
But what I'm saying is you're gonna like we built a really good core of a really good side. Like Elliot Anderson for me. Would you answer a completely different question? But obviously we had to get some money back for him. But when possibly Tonali goes in the summer, maybe even Bruno, like as people are talking about, would you break the bank and just say, listen, I'll bite the bullet?
Mm-hmm.
Like I know we sold them for X, but we might have to pay Z to get them back.
That's
But you've got like Manu did with Pogba, I suppose.
Aye.
But I just think we've got the core, like Big Dan, like absolute warrior. Chow, probably two of the best fullbacks in England. Two good goalkeepers, and this is how fickle sport is. Like Nick Pope has been unbelievable for us since he came in. He was a huge part of how we turned it around. And then goes through spells, and all of a sudden you get people saying, "Who's this? He's that?" He's not. He's a very good keeper. We've got two good keepers there. Obviously, we need a 9. We've got quality everywhere. We're not far away.
But I tell you what, the trouble with that argument for me,
Keeping Louis is a huge. Well, we're going to keep Louis, but
the mistake,
he's going to be massive.
the thing for me that is wrong with that statement, and it's all a matter of opinion, we'll not have that squad next season. There's people, Tonali won't stay for me. Gordon, if he gets the opportunity, will go. Livramento, if he gets the offer, will go. So we're not going to have that.
What makes you think? I mean, the Gordon, probably the Tonali one I get. Because it's too many signs for me.
Yes, it is.
I'm just looking at what's just happened. The fact that listen, I've been in football. I've had injuries. You're not fully fit to play on a Sunday, and you star for your country on a Thursday.
It's mental. Not even be on the bench for the derby.
Yeah, that don't really add up. Like, but that aside, what makes you think Gordon will want to go? What makes you think Livramento will want to go?
Well, I'll tell you. I think.
Are you talking about Dosh? Or are you talking about bigger clubs? Or?
I'm talking about ambition, and I'm talking about the sort of mentality that you've got. I looked at Gordon.
Do we need to sell him though?
Oh, it doesn't matter. If a player wants to go, it doesn't matter whether we need to sell him.
Been proved in the summer, you're right?
Yeah, well, if I'm not saying he does. If a player wants to, Isaac proved that. We come out time and time again a year ago and said, we're not selling Isaac, or we'll sell him on our terms. He's going to have to settle. He's got a contract. What do? We sell him when it's too late to do much about it, right at the last minute. Player power will always win, because once he goes on strike and he makes it obvious he's not going to, he may as well not play for at the end of last season. What he was going to be like in the summer, in this season, if we'd forced him to stay.
Maybe I've got too much faith in people.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just a football romantic and think what Isaac's done is a one-off. Surely nobody else can do that.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong, mate.
You know what? I'm probably in the wrong sport.
You're a lovable little fella, but you're wrong.
I'm a football romantic.
Gordon is reminding me of Isaac. Gordon is never... Gordon, by the way, Gordon did... You go back and talk to Everton fans about what they think about Gordon.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that.
And when he played...
That's why they were chasing him out the stadium, weren't they?
When he had this six months of acclimatising to our way of playing, and then came out the traps and had that wonderful season of being exhilarating, etc., etc. Then Liverpool wanted him, and he was wearing shirts at training with Alexander...
Trent Alexander.
With England, and laughing about going to Liverpool, the club he loved. Laughing, I meant in a nice way about, isn't it great we'll be teammates and all that. And then all of a sudden that didn't happen. He has never looked happy, but I looked at Isaac. I think body language in football tells you everything. The players will never say anything because they don't need to. The agents will say it for them, etc., etc.
Like Tonali.
And the club will always say the club angle. I look at players on the pitch and I look at them and I think, I don't like your body language. And I did that with Isaac. And I tell you what, I don't like Gordon's.
No.
Gordon's body language tells me I might be totally wrong in doing him a disservice, but he thinks he's better than Newcastle United.
I agree
is,
completely.
And he thinks he should have a top club. And if a top club comes along, he will sign for them. Livramento is different, but I think his head's been turned by Man City.
Oh, aye.
He's a kid that's come up and he's gone like that, Chelsea and then Newcastle, and and his body language. I look at body languages. This guy is a Rolls Royce. He is the most wonderful. I thought him and Hall were the Craig and Clark of the future. 10 years, fullbacks, absolutely top of the range. He's played the last couple of games for us. He's made monumental mistakes.
Terrible. Head's gone, that's why.
On goals both times. And why?
Yeah, head's gone, doesn't care. Checked out.
You look, the two blokes that epitomise for the two blue chip players that epitomise what we are all about for me right now is Bruno and Lewis Hall. They play like they care with a passion. They'll run through brick walls. They'll do the.
I think you've got to put Dan in that category as well.
Oh, yeah, but I don't see him as a blue chip player, but I do put him in that category.
All right.
I do see him in an honest to God Premier League. Oh yes, I would put him in that category.
No, he's an England national, mate.
Is reserve, mate, because he's good in the dressing room, which is what we were also told about by the Newcastle United manager. We're told about that from Tom Stokes. I never knew so many games were played in the dressing room. I used to think they were played on the grass. But evidently, if you're good in the dressing room, it doesn't matter what you're like on the grass. You're worth being part of the squad. I'm doing him a disservice, but I'm talking.
I think so, Gibbo.
Well, yes, but I don't think he's a blue chip player in the way I think Livramento is, Bruno is, Hall
I think
is,
maybe because of his
Tonali
age,
is,
you would be saying that, but
he's that. Well, I don't.
Okay,
Gordon,
again,
I don't
he's
think.
a
I don't.
top
Yeah,
leader.
I don't think he is that. I think he's an honest to God. I think this is a pinnacle of his. Never mind England. He must think that's bloody unbelievable.
oh, of course he does.
But coming here after Brighton, after Fulham, after the Trolleys in Asda, after Blythe Town, and he must think this is the greatest thing that's ever happened to him. Dollar, no, that was the peak of his career before he became.
I know,
but you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, of course.
You know where I'm coming from. I just think that there's players at Newcastle. These blue chip players, this basis of the side, this is the finish of an era that way. That squad will not be the squad with new additions at the beginning of next season.
This is what I was leading on to for one of the final questions was, the reports are that at least 8 Newcastle players will leave this summer because a lot of them obviously are out of contract. So you've got Trips, Shaw, Kraft. So there's a lot to do there in the back line. You've got obviously these blue chip players that you talk about, whether it's just Tonali or it's Tonali, Gordon, and Livramento that leave. And there's a few of them.
You've got the goalkeeping
Ramsdale that's
situation.
on loan, going to go back
there's
out.
Pope stayed, there's Gillespie stayed, there's Ruddy stayed. You've got that situation. That situation, by the way, is frightening that nobody's ever. I mean, we've got 4 goalkeepers, and the point is, do you keep just one of them? Ramsdale will probably go back. Ruddy's 39, for goodness sake.
Good in the dressing room, though, Gibbo.
Ruddy, hell, I know. I tell you what, when we start playing in the dressing room, we'll win the league. Don't worry about that. And Gillespie, I've seen more of Shergar with Lord Lucan aboard him than I've seen of Gillespie. So, I mean, what are these players doing at Newcastle United? I mean, they've got to look at the whole of the goal, not just your first team goalkeeper, but your 4 goalkeepers that you need, and presumably one of the kids, Harris, or the kid that's up on loan, Thompson, and will come into the 4th goalkeeping slot. But we've got to look at the goalkeeper big time. We've got to look at the centre forward big time.
Centre backs.
We've got to look at the centre backs where there's no pace and everybody's 106. Everybody's an old age pensioner in football terms. You know, you look and you think Trips. You look at Byrne. You look at Shaw. Age-wise, all 30 plus. You can't have them all 30 plus. You've got to do something about it. Well, 2 fullbacks are okay, Livramento and Hall.
You've only got the back 4. You're talking about fully fit Chow, Livramento and Hall.
Sven.
Ages.
Sven Botman as well.
And Botman's only what, early 20s?
Yeah,
20s?
she's
So, age, not a great deal of. I mean, I get the pace thing, but do you ever? I mean, how many times do you really see us getting done for pace?
every time somebody take front sub Burn.
But there is a lot of work there to do this summer, isn't it? A lot of players are going to leave, a lot of players are going to have to come in.
Oh, that's going to be a huge turnover. Let's not kid ourselves. This is a squad for next season with a couple of better players that are going to make us better. This isn't a squad for next. If all of Livramento and Gordon and Tonali, if all those three are here next season, all three, I'll be absolutely staggered because I would expect at least one and probably two to leave.
I think at least two,
I think we've got to be really canny this transfer window. And I tell you, it was a really good example. When I was at Everton with Moyes, we finished fourth. First time we'd finished above Everton for a long time. Above Liverpool for a long time. But you look at the squad and you look at what he's building now, and you look at it, and you're talking about big signings as you'd say, but no real superstars. Just an incredible dressing room, work ethic, togetherness, tactically very, very good. And Everton might finish.
They might finish with Liverpool again.
Might finish Liverpool this. So if you're not going to get those superstars, and you're not going to be able to go and attract the best players now. That's why you have to be really canny and just build an unbelievable sort of squad group of players that can play at his style.
Do you know?
It might be that you have to dip into top championship players and turn them. Look at Jamie Vardy. You know what I mean? He started at Stocksbridge, 24-year-old, and he's gone on to play for his country, break all kinds of records. So that's where I suppose that's if you're not going to be able to attract. If we're not in Europe, I still think we obviously can be. I think we're running, and we spoke about this earlier. Arsenal obviously top of the league, but we've beat them 2 or 3 times. We've done unbelievable against them last season. But we can win every game, and I'm not saying we will, but we can. And we've got no cups to think of.
One game a week, Gibbo.
I try and think down those lines. Try and think down those lines. But as you say, coming into the summer, if we're not in Europe, and you're not going to be able to attract the guaranteed game changers, then you have to be really canny and just think a John McGinn, something like that.
And die.
But you know what?
From Everton.
You know what? So that's probably where you're really going to earn the money now as a group of sort of scouts and everything. Let's look at what we can get.
But didn't we do that? Didn't we do that when we got Bruno out of France and we got Trips who was ready to leave Spain and we got Livramento from Chelsea and Hall from Chelsea reserves. And we were buying Byrne
Harvey Barnes from Leicester.
With respect, Byrne from Brighton and Harvey Barnes from Leicester. We did. Then when we've tried it the big time, we've gone no. Oh, we've got Elanga. Shit. That was a bit of a blow.
Well, you'd like to think lesson learned, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Hope so.
Yes,
Coming into the summer.
That's why I'm giving him the summer. That's why I'm giving him the summer.
You'd like to think, you know what, that tried and tested feels and smells a lot better than what we just tried to do.
Absolutely. Right then, gentlemen, let's finish off with, because we'll come back to this at the end of the season with a summer special for you lot, where we'll talk about signings and stuff like that a lot more. But 7 or 8 games to go. You just said it there, Walter. We can't win every last game. Champions League's a bit out of touch now. Where do you think we'll finish? Is it Europa or is it Conference League?
You know what?
Is it 12?
It was going to be. I loved the Champions League and what comes with it, and the trips and the nights that we have. Unbelievable. Were we ever really this season ever going to be in a position where we could win the Champions League? Probably not.
No.
Could we have won one of the other European competitions
Absolutely.
and got another bloody good trophy?
Absolutely.
To cheer. So anywhere that gives us a chance to win a European competition, I still think is achievable. Setting up a team, I think, is really good. He's proven when you've got time, he's got to run at it, and he's got time to organise the one-off games. He's apart from what's just happened, he's been excellent. The Arsenal's in the 2 legs against Arsenal, keeping 2 clean sheets. Not many people do that.
The cup final was perfect.
The cup final was letter perfect. So every game now, and it's a cliche in football, but every single game, take one at a time, I think we can win most of them. So in that respect, we can finish in Europe.
Nice. Gibbo, prediction for whereabouts we'll finish?
Good question. good question.
The devil and the angel on this.
It is.
I was so.
I don't know what I am. Yeah, just floating around. I'm a bit of both.
I was 100% convinced we'd win my last game against Sunderland.
So was I.
And I
So
got
was
embarrassed.
I.
So I'm now sitting here saying, careful, Gibbo. Don't make a fool of yourself. You expected to beat Sunderland. You went on record with that, and it didn't happen. This is our chance. This is what Eddie asked for. And by the way, I am not really having a go at Eddie, because what he's done for me, I'll be grateful to him for the rest of my life, for last season alone. And that's without 2 Champions League campaigns, 2 Wembley finals, one of them won, etc. By Jove, as a Newcastle fan after Ashley, I'm not going to knock that. But we're now in a situation where do we go from here? Champions League, forget about it. It doesn't matter what we're doing. If we win 16-0 the next 8 games by 16-0, we'll not be in the Champions League. Into Europe, I'm a bit like Steve. Let's get into Europe, because we could win either of those European, and I just want to win a trophy. You know, I mean, I went into Newcastle in 66, in 68, 69, we're winning a European trophy. I thought this is going to be a wonderful life, and when I won bugger all since till last season. So I just want to win a trophy. If we can sit through dross, if we go in the Conference League, please, fans, you're going to get a lot of dross against sides you've never heard of before we get to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and final, and then we'll all give it the whoopee because we're going to win a trophy. Europa League's a bit better, but the Conference League is like when I followed Gateshead. You know, the quality is so poor in the rest of Europe until you get teams like Fiorentina or whatever that are left in the last.
Tell you what, though, Gibbo, us Geordies won't mind a few of those away trips. So
we
enjoy
won't
ourselves.
mind the trips.
Thursday nights in bloody Malia and that.
We probably won't see the game on a Thursday because we'll be lying in a hotel room.
Exactly, man.
But I mean,
Better
as
than
long as we win, let's go in. Please, let's win a competition. And next season, we're not going to win the Premier League, despite what Mr. Hopkinson might say.
That's for sure.
We're not going to win the Premier League, so we've got the 2 domestic trophies. Let's try to have a go at one of the European trophies. It won't help the summer. We won't sign top-notch players because we're in the Europa League or the Conference. They'll just go to the Champions League. And the excuse of not being in the Champions League will let a few of our guys bail out. Hey, I'll tell you something. I was distraught when Isaac won. But if 1 or 2 of them want to bail out because they're bigger than us, well, bail out, pal. Because I've had enough of watching players who are quality players not try a toss for us like Isaac did, and like I could mention a couple of players now who I'm not going to. If you don't want to play, I want players to play for us the way Bruno and Lewis Hall do, who are quality. Burn as well, but I'm talking about international. First team internationals, not squad internationals, first team internationals, who are great. I mean, Hall's going to be different.
No, the best.
Oh, dear. He's going to be the top of the nose. So, right, let's go out and do something. It's going to be Eddie till the end of the season. Unless he loses 8 out of 8 or 7 out of 7, it's going to be Eddie for next season, because it's not a matter of the public opinion. It's a matter of what the owners think, and the owners will stick with Eddie. And I'm not saying public opinion's against him, but there's not going to be a vote. It's not like Stormer gets in because we hate the Conservatives, and Stormer goes out now because we like Farage. It's not going to be like that. So let's stick with what we've got. Let's make a fist of it. But I'll tell you what, we don't play a solitary single game in the summer, and that's going to be the most important time of the year for Newcastle United. Our future will be decided by what happens in the summer, in the transfer market, who goes, who stays, and who comes. That's the crucial period for us.
I think that's a good place to end, me.
Yeah, no.
Good stuff.
Spot on.
Legend Gibbo, thanks very much, mate.
Cheers, my
Appreciate
friend.
your time.
Cheers, mate.
Oh, brilliant
Give
stuff.
it one.
Cheers,
You
my
might have seen throughout the show, we've had stuff in the background there about the new football quiz that is coming here. It's going to be the first one on the 21st of April. Some unbelievable prizes, like a full day of football hospitality. So you're in the box at St. James's, you're having your pre-drinks here at Fleet Street, and afterwards as well, hosted by the one and only Gibbo on those
We've
football
just
quiz
spent
nights.
10 minutes trying to work out who scored the most direct free kicks in the Premier
Don't
League for
tell them.
Newcastle, and we still don't know.
We still don't know.
So I
Still don't know.
thought-
So if you know, get yourselves
There's
on
the
the
first
quiz
question.
and you can win some good prizes. Nice one. Cheers, everyone. See you later.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye. Bye. Well done, guys. Good. Well done. Bit of fun.